Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going over 2 urban legends that turned out to be true. If I sound tired, it is, yes, I am tired. This is my 4th time trying to record this video. Don't subscribe just yet, I will earn your subscription by the end of this video, and don't leave a like just yet. Watch the video all the way through. Once you've made it to the end and you actually like the video, then make sure to leave a like. We are also on our way to 100 subscribers, and as of right now we are at 83, 84. Let's dive into story number 1, the Bunnyman. This urban legend originated from 2 incidents in Fairfax County, Virginia in the 1970s. But it has also spread throughout Washington, D.C. and Maryland. This legend has many variations, but it mostly involves a man that is seen wearing a rabbit costume who tends to attack people with an axe or a hatchet. And most of these stories mostly occur around Colchester Overpass, a southern railway overpass spanning Colchester Road near Clifton, Virginia. Bridge is also sometimes referred to as Bunnyman Bridge. Versions of this legend vary in the legend's name, motive, victims, weapons, description of the costume or lack thereof, and sometimes even his possible death. In some accounts, victims' bodies are mutilated, and in some other variations, the Bunnyman's ghost or aging specter is said to come out of his place of death every year on Halloween to commemorate his death. Let's get into the first reported incident of seeing the Bunnyman. The first reported incident on the evening of October 19, 1970, and it would be a couple, Cadet Robert Bennett, a U.S. Air Force Academy, and his fiancée, who had been visiting relatives on Vineyard Road, and from a football game. They would report parking their car in a field on Vineyard Road. They would say they were visiting an uncle who was living across the street from where they had parked their car. While they had been sitting in front with the motor running, they would say that they had noticed something moving outside the rear window, and moments after seeing this, they would explain that the front passenger window would be smashed. There had been a white-clad figure standing near that very same broken window, and Bennett would turn the car straight back, and while he did this, the man that had smashed the window would be screaming, claiming that they were trespassing, and that they had their tag number. And while they had been driving down the road, the couple would also discover a hatchet laying on the floor of their car. And this couple would phone the police or drive to the police, and when they got there, the couple would be questioned by the police of what this figure exactly looked like. Bennett would say that it looked like somebody wearing a white suit with long bunny ears, but Bennett's fiancée would disagree with his statement and say that the figure did not have bunny ears on its head, but had been wearing a white cabriolet of some sort. They had both remembered seeing its face clearly, but in the darkness they would not be able to determine the figure's race. And so after the examination, the police would return the hatchet. Incident number 2 would occur only 10 days after the first sighting on October 29, 1970. A construction security guard, Paul Phillips, would see a man who had been standing on the porch of an unfinished home and would start to approach him in Kings Park West on Vineyard Park. Paul would recount the man had been wearing a gray, black, and white bunny costume, looked about 5'8", around about 20 years old, and could weigh about 175 pounds. This man had begun chopping out of porch posts with a long-handled axe and would threaten Paul by saying that he would chop off his head if he came any closer. Some accounts of who this mysterious Bunnyman is just differs, but one of the most common genus legends of the Bunnyman is the spirit of a crazy man who had escaped from an asylum back in 1904. A group of criminally insane people were being transported on a bus when the bus unexpectedly crashed, killing everybody inside except for one man. He would escape and would vanish into the night, never being seen again. This man's name is Douglas Griffin. His memory, and perhaps his ghost, would live on long after he had escaped. He then started his killing spree with people and animals. Most of the animals had appeared to be rabbits, but he would never be recaptured, and it's said that his ghost was what attacked that couple that October 9th. Remember how I said Crazy Man escaped an asylum in 1904? Well, that could be a lie, because it was a bit too early for buses to be a common transportation for asylum inmates, and at this time there was no asylums in that specific area in 1904, but for whatever reason, the story still persists. And our final story for today is Cropsey. Cropsey is an urban legend, and Cropsey originates from Staten Island, New York, and it would tell a story of a child murderer who would haunt the area during the 1970s, so around about the same time as the Bunnyman. This legend would describe a man who would kidnap children after he allegedly had lost his own son, and this would make him become a figure of fear for local children. Cropsey had often been depicted as a boogeyman, tales warning kids to stay away from certain areas, particularly near the abandoned Willowbrook State School, where it had been rumored where he would take kids. So let's really dive into when this urban legend became a reality. Andre Rand, born on March 11, 1944, would begin his killing spree in 1972 when 5-year-old Alice Pereira would vanish from the area around Tyson Lane apartments in the 600 block of Tyson's Lane on Staten Island. Alice would be playing in the building's lobby with her brother, and she would abruptly disappear around 3:30 p.m. after her brother had briefly left her alone. After this, she would be seen one more time around a park close to the apartment complex in the New Drop neighborhood. Rand is the prime suspect in their case, as he had been working as a painter in Tyson's Lane apartment at the time of his disappearance. Audrey Lane Burnham, who was 18 at the time of her disappearance, would be last seen leaving her family's home in the Canarsie neighborhood on Brooklyn on July 5, 1977, and she would be telling her mom that she would return home immediately after purchasing cigarettes. But this would not be the case. Her schizophrenia would cause her to spend brief periods of time in several healthcare institutions in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens between 1974 and 1977 at the time of her disappearance. And fast forward to later, where Audrey would travel with family to Staten Island to see a movie at the former Jerry Lewis Theater on 4th Avenue. This theater had been adjacent to a campsite that Rand had previously visited. Ethel Louise Atwell. Atwell was 42 when she had last been seen October 24, 1978 at the Willowbrook State School, and she was there working as a physical therapy assistant. Or she could get from the parking lot to the building on the school's campus, and this was around 6 a.m. Two female employees would hear a male's voice calling out to Atwell, saying, "Come on, come on." They would hear Atwell say, "No, they'll beat." The two female employees would call the police after they heard Atwell screaming. The parking lot had still been dark, street lights weren't on, so it was really difficult for the employees to spot anything, like any evidence of something going on. And when first responders would arrive, search Atwell's car, and they would find a tan pocketbook, one earring, one black shoe, 3 black coat buttons, and part of her set of dentures. But her car had been locked, and when they searched the area around about 75 feet away from her locked car. They would find Atwell's car keys. And after these discoveries, no traces of Atwell would be found despite authorities doing a thorough search of the area. Shinley was 44 years old and was working as a nurse when she had gone missing early in 1978 from Willowbrook State School. Disappearance would be very similar to Atwell's disappearance. She had been reported missing on July 20th, and she would last be seen walking home from the campus close to midnight. Lee would be found murdered by strangulation and was buried in a shallow grave near a wooded area on the facility grounds on August 6th. Only 2 months prior to Atwell's disappearance, Atwell and Lee are suspected victims of Rand, but there would be no concrete evidence to link them to these crimes. Holly Ann was just 7 years old. She was last seen on July 5th, 1981, Staten Island and Richmond Terrace, Park Avenue. Her mother would send her to Port Richmond Deli, which was 2 blocks away, to purchase a bar of ivory soap. And Holly would last be seen purchasing the soap at around 9:30 p.m., but she wouldn't return home, nor would she ever be heard from again. After a month of his disappearance, her mother had received a call from a man who would identify himself as Sal, and this Sal person would inform the mother that he was in her child and would ask the mother to meet to engage in acts in front of the camera in exchange for Holly's safe return. And her mother, being smart about this situation, would not go by herself. She would bring detectives with her and would meet Sal at Penn Station in New York City. Sal would not show up. She would say that she never actually believed Sal had her daughter, and by this time, she thought that Holly was dead. In 2002, Rand's former Staten Island home, Berlin Street, would be examined by authorities, but they wouldn't find any evidence to Holly's disappearance. Now, after Holly had gone missing, Rand would be questioned by the police, and they would even search his car. But they would not prosecute him until 20 years later. Holly's mother would identify Rand's voice as being the voice that she would hear on that extortion phone call. Witnesses would also claim to see Rand driving a green Volkswagen, and he had been circling the business where Holly had vanished in 1981. Let's fast forward to August 14th, 1983. 11-year-old Tyreese Jackson will last be seen leaving the Mariners Harbor Motel on Forest Avenue in Staten Island. She would leave around 1:30 p.m. while her mother had been sleeping, and another resident would send Jackson out to purchase chicken wings for them from the Crown Supermarket at 900 block of Richmond Avenue. But she would never return, and the resident wouldn't get their chicken wings. After 3 hours of Jackson being gone, her mother would wake up and discovered that her daughter had been missing for the 3 hours that she had been asleep. And at this point, she would call the police. Jackson's mother and uncle would both pass the lie detector tests, would be ruled out as suspects in Jackson's disappearance. We should also mention where Rand was. Rand had a campsite at the Barnhurst Cemetery, less than 1/2 mile from the Mariners Harbor Motel. And Jackson's mother would say that she had seen a man matching his description loitering in the motel's parking lot. Although Rand had been interrogated, no charges would ever be filed. A 22-year-old native of Staten Island would go drinking on July 8th, 1984. His first stop would be at Mark's Away. But after being declined service, he would go stop by Spa Lounge and would stay there until they closed at 4 a.m. Before he would go missing, Hank would be described as being slow and had an intelligence quotient in the 70s. Hank had been living with his parents and his 3 brothers in the 90 block of Herberton Avenue, and this would also be on the same block as Rand, and just around the corner from the Hughes residence. Hank's body has never been found, and Rand's final victim was a 12-year-old Jennifer Schwager, who was born with Down syndrome and would be reported missing on July 9, 1987. Witnesses would say that they would see Jennifer walking with Rand. Jennifer's body would later be found underground after a 35-day search. While combing the area around Willowbrook State School, a particular spot caught the eye of retired New York City firefighter George Farmer. George would return with the police. The entire body was unearthed from the shallow grave, and the remains of the body were positively identified as those of Jennifer. Police would search the grounds for evidence and found one of Rand's makeshift campsites in proximity of Jennifer's grave. Rand would be charged with the kidnapping and first-degree murder of Jennifer in 1988. Although Staten Island jury couldn't reach a verdict on the murder charge, Rand would be convicted of the first-degree kidnapping charge. Rand would be sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, and he would have been eligible for parole in 2008 if he had not been convicted for a second kidnapping. Some people believe that Rand had not been alone in the commission of his crimes and may have been passing children around to his friends in the underground network of homeless and mentally disabled people living in the tunnel systems of the former Willowbrook State School. And while Rand is currently incarcerated, officers and inmates would say that they hear Rand allegedly bragging about his pedophilic exploit. He would confess that Rand killed Hugh to an inmate and would even compare himself to the famous serial killer Ted Bundy. Rand would be brought to trial again in 2004, and this time he would also be charged with the kidnapping of Holly Ann Hughes 23 years later. In New York, there is no statute of limitation for first-degree kidnapping, which would make this charge possible. A jury will convict Rand of the kidnapping in October 2004, and Rand would then be sentenced to another consecutive 25 years to life in prison. Hopefully this piece of shit is dead before he can become eligible for parole, which is in 2037. And by this time, he will be 93 when he's able to do so. And that's gonna do it. Anyway, if you made it this far and you actually liked the video, make sure to leave a like. It really helps me out and it lets me know you want to see more videos just like this. And if I earned your subscription, make sure to subscribe. It really helps me out. We're trying to hit 100 subscribers for August. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed. My socials are in the description and my sources. I will catch you guys in Thursday's video.